Right. Excellent. Thank you, Ines. So as you will have just heard, we do record these sessions because we like to be able to share knowledge with people who aren't able to attend today. So if you, hopefully you realise that from the invite of the meetup. Today we have a I am particularly excited about this because I do a lot of this sort of stuff in my work. I'm Helen Garcia, if you haven't met me before. I'm an Agile and cognitive behavioural coach. So it is good to see you. I have my wonderful co-host, Ines Garcia, who is also an Agile coach. She does some Salesforcey tech things and lots of other things, which is beyond my knowledge, but it's great to have you here today. Before we go on, again, I just want to say thank you. I know that everybody's time is super precious, especially at the moment when we end up on Zoom calls all day. So it is really great just to have you guys on board. It's really, really nice to see, especially some returners as well. Hopefully that's a good thing that you enjoy the sessions. A bit of housekeeping. If there is a fire, please exit to your closest exit. That, for me, that's here. For you, that will be somewhere completely different. So please be conscious of that. And obviously, you know, close your Zoom and just get out, get the heck out of there. This is a collaboration. We are very open. Do what you feel is comfortable. If you want to put your questions in the chat, then put them in the chat. That's totally fine. Ines will be monitoring the chat there, and obviously if you want to come off mute, that's okay. Do what you feel is comfortable. As I said before, we are recording the session, so nothing more really to say about that. Time box for this session is about 90 minutes. It may be less than that. Let's see how we go. We don't like to just prolong anything when it's not necessary. Yeah. That's it, I think. Cool. Right, guys, we're going to do an exercise. Awesome. Nice, Renee. I like that you've got props. And do an exercise. We need to warm up our fingers and maybe our toes if you're up for it. As you know, I am a massive fan of rock, paper, scissors. It is a tool, it is a game that I play often with my teams because it's nice to be able to get a little bit of decision making just simply with using our hands. So I would call you today to come and play rock, paper, scissors with me. Have you guys played it before? I think it's like a global game. Yeah, cool. So prove it. Can I see your greatest rock? Yes, nice. Paper? Show me some papers. Oh, lovely. I always enjoy Ines's paper. It's always very nice. Thank you, guys. And a pair of scissors. Now, be careful. If you've had a bad day, you need to just, you know, make sure you use your scissors in the correct way. Nice, Dominique. I like it. Okay, right, so I have some questions now for you. As you know, this session has been brought to us by Mural, and Laïla is with us today to talk to us about that, and Ines will introduce her very shortly. But we'd like to find out more about maybe what this is. So question number one. Well, there's only one question today, sorry. Is Mural A, show me with a rock, wall art? Is it B, a collaborative visual tool? Ignore the artist bit, that was my confusion. And the C, is it an artist? Hopefully nobody will vote for C right now. So show me a rock if it's wall art, show me a piece of paper if it's a collaborative visual tool, or you know what, show me a pair of scissors if it's all of the above. We've got one rock, we've got some papers out there, we've got some scissors out there. It's a bit of a mixed bag. So how about we find out? The crowds roar. Excellent. Ines, over to you.
Okay, thank you guys. Really lovely to see you, Lord. Thanks for taking the time. I'm super chuffed for the session today with Laïla, who is Head of Culture and Collaboration in Mural. And yeah, I reached out to Laïla after seeing some of the great work she's been doing. She's very skilled facilitator and has been working in this arena of remote and hybrid for a long time. So this is not new. And it really fits with what we're trying to do here and why we created the group in the first place. And I saw some of the work that you guys did in 2020 when you had to move your gathers from like 3D into 2D. And I was just really impressed. And I've been like sharing, and I will share the link with you guys in the chat in a minute about it, because doing a like to like just doesn't work. You need to reinvent and try to make the most of what you have and using the tools and the things that you have so that they serve the purpose of coming together. And so today we're gonna discover the very last gather you guys did. So I'm really excited to find out the ins and outs. And not only that, over the last 18 months, I'm sure we have plenty of questions and things that we try, but it doesn't ferment in the way that we hope. So we're gonna bombard you with some questions, Laïla, if that's okay. So without further ado, the floor is yours. Please take it away.
Hello, and thank you, Helen and Ines, for a great introduction. And thank you all for making time this evening, whether it's 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. your time. I think most of you are in Europe. So really appreciate you making time right now. And before I start, I do want to say, since we're a small group, I like to keep this presentation as informal as possible. I'm going to be sharing my screen and talk more about this experience that Ines mentioned. But I also want it to be interactive as much as possible. And you don't have to turn on your webcam, of course not. If you're doing something else, that's fine. But if you do want to interact in the chat and ask questions while I'm speaking, I'm gonna answer them as we go. So we don't have to wait till the very end for a Q&A. And if you don't understand something that I'm saying, let me know. If you're not familiar with a tool or something that I'm sharing, let me know as well. So let's get started. And here we go. All right, so I am using Mural. So we didn't really answer that question, but I was interested in seeing all the scissors and rocks, and I don't know if we got rocks. I got papers and scissors. So my answer actually would have been a scissor, because I think Mural can be used for art as well if you want to. But I do think that, generally speaking, we define it as a tool for visual collaboration, similar to, well, many people call it an online whiteboard. I've called it that many times. However, I do think it's even more than that. Oh yeah, and it's Mural, or Mural in Spanish. Actually, it started in Argentina, so that's how it was probably called in the beginning. And I'm just using Mural now. I'm just going to zoom out to show you that this is a canvas. It's like this canvas. I can zoom in and out, but you can use it to collaborate. But today, I'm going to be using it to present to all of you. So I'm going to go into presentation mode. As you can see, it looks very similar to a slide. And I'm going to go in full screen mode and hopefully still see the chat. Let me see where the chat is. All right, so I have everything open now needed. So everybody can see my screen? Thumbs up? All right, great. So hello, everyone. I know I've been introduced already. So my name is Laïla, and I'm Head of Culture and Collaboration at Mural. If you ever want to reach out to me, you can find me on Twitter. You can also find me on LinkedIn after this event. And thank you, Ines, for that. Actually, Helen asked me if I was from the US or if I'm celebrating Thanksgiving. I'm not from the US. I'm from Switzerland. I'm half Swiss, half Syrian, and I'm based in Lugano in the south of Switzerland, if you know where that is. It's on the border with Italy, and that's why I'm also fluent in Italian, because it's my mother tongue. So yeah, right there on the border. Italy is like 5 minutes away. I could walk there if I wanted to. Whoa, something is gone. This is where Mural is not behaving today. What's going on? All right. Oh, I think I know what I did. I probably did a mistake. I moved something. Anyway, I wanted to, before sharing what I do, I'd love in the chat to see what your roles are and which I think this is a virtual Agile meetup. I know what Agile is. I'm personally not the Agile expert, although I definitely work in an Agile way, but would love to know what your roles are. So I can explain a little bit further what my role is. While you all do that, I'm going to fix the issue I had, because I think I know what I did here, which was not, let me see, that's what I did. All right, let's see some roles coming in as I fix my presentation. There we go. And I'll go back in presentation mode. There we go. So we see CRM, database. Okay, Scrum Master, Journeyman. Interesting. I like that. DevOps consultant, application support. Okay, so we're in very different roles, very different teams, I think, which is great. I work with a lot of people in different roles as well in the company. Consultant, sustainability, very interesting. Manager of a big team of Salesforce developers. Okay, so yeah, I've worked with a lot of developers. My background is in user experience design, and I used to use Mural in my previous job. And then I joined Mural, not as a designer, but as a facilitator, online facilitator, helping customers at Mural use the product. So that's where the facilitation part is, why it's there on the right. Let me just go, actually, no, I'll stay not full screen, this is fine. And then I switched to a role in HR. So I set up the people operations team at Mural. I was head of people operations, and now I'm head of culture, which is really a nice blend of getting to know the people at Mural, understanding what the culture is like, nurturing, fostering that culture, making sure that new people who join the company know what our company culture is about. And then there's a collaboration aspect, which is really around remote collaboration, because Mural is a company that has been working remotely even before the pandemic, and our platform allows people to collaborate remotely. Previously, I used to teach people how to use Mural externally, and now internally, I'm helping people at Mural not only understand how to use Mural, but also understand how we as a company work in this remote first way. And that goes through facilitation as well. So I do a lot of workshops, I facilitate events, I facilitate things like the all hands meetings at our company. So that's pretty much my role. That's why it's culture and collaboration. Okay, so I did mention that we are a remote team, and we are a global team as well. So Mural started in Argentina, something that many people don't know. It started in Buenos Aires. Mainly we have our designers and a lot of people in our engineering team in Buenos Aires. And then slowly we spread across the US and then Europe. And now we're also getting bigger in the APAC region. So today we are over 800 people at Mural. And what's interesting to know is that we really had this hyper growth. We are experiencing a hyper growth, especially during the pandemic. So what you're seeing here is not actually the steady growth of our company, because that would be a curve that just continues going up. But this shows you how many new hires we hired. So how many new people we hired at Mural. So in the beginning, when I joined, which was not totally the beginning, because Mural is 10 years old now, but in April 2018, I think that month we hired 3 people, right? And we continued to hire maybe 3, maybe 4 people for a long time. And then the pandemic hit, and then we were hiring a lot more people. So we have been hiring about 10 to 20 people almost every week since the pandemic began, because there's been such a huge demand for Mural. And that's how we went from being a little over 100 in January of 2020 to now being over 800 people. So it's been a really challenging time, I won't lie, for all of us, because there's just so many people coming. So before COVID-19, we had an office in Buenos Aires, we had an office in San Francisco, so these were physical offices. And then we had a small group of people like myself who are working remotely. And then now after COVID began, everybody is remote, and our team in the US has grown a lot. Our team in Argentina has also grown, but less so. And then we've had, as I mentioned before, more people globally. And why I'm saying all this is because is connected to these experiences that we're having remotely that are also quite challenging. So today we will be talking about how we went from these 3D face-to-face experiences or company retreats to a 2D experience, and how we design those experiences for people. Because before the pandemic hit, we would actually meet in person. And what you see here on the top left is a picture of the whole company. Like I said, we were 100 plus people, little over 100. This was the last retreat in 2019. We met in Buenos Aires in Argentina, our headquarters. We did things like design sprints. We played football. It's very big in Argentina to play football. We had a lot of activities outside, team building, teams coming together to work on little projects that they had. And we also used to do these offsites. So for example, at the bottom here, you had customer success. That was a very small team back then. They all met in New Jersey because quite a lot of them were based on the East Coast of the US. And these were amazing times to come together, get to know those people that we only knew on Slack or by email. And then the pandemic hit and we thought, oh God, this is it, all our office parties are just done. We're not going to be able to meet and have fun. And especially at this time of year, as you can imagine, we're thinking about Christmas or holiday parties, even if you don't celebrate Christmas. And I'm actually planning 3 much smaller events to celebrate the end of the year this year. But we did start with bigger events when the pandemic hit. So I'm going to share 2 of these experiences today. The first one was an event that lasted a little less than 3 hours, which was the Mural World Tour. This was in August 2020. We were around 250 people then. The pandemic had begun, of course, around February, March. And we, at the time, had just, leadership had been told by their investors that we had successfully completed a round of funding. So that was exciting news. And the leadership team wanted to announce that to the rest of the company. Now, we couldn't meet in person. So they came to me and asked me, what can we do to celebrate with everybody at Mural? And so this is what we came up with. So the idea was, well, everybody's stuck at home. We cannot travel, but we want to create an experience where people feel like they are traveling anyway, right? We wanted to allow them to go onto a virtual flight, so to speak, and have this tour with the whole company. So what we did was create an experience that was very tangible in some ways and virtual in other ways, but overall it was a kind of 2D experience. And we started out with this invitation, which was a boarding pass posted in our Slack. So, we really gave a lot of thought about the experience, every touch point. How can we make this really seem like people are going to take a flight? So this was the boarding pass. We had the different time zones here where people had to join on Zoom, the date, and then the Slack channel where they had to stay tuned for further news. And then this QR code, actually, if you scanned it, there was a fun little video of an unofficial sponsor of this world tour. So it started with that. And then we also shared an itinerary. So I'm going to show you a separate mural because I do have this itinerary open. So this was the whole itinerary right here, what you're looking at. And I'm just going to zoom in a little bit and walk you through that. So we said, get ready for the world tour. These are the times that we're departing. These are the channels. If you get lost, if you need any kind of information, and we have a crew that is going to help you, to guide you through this experience. So everybody was, we had this theme of flying. We had the pilots, we had the flight attendants. We also had the ground crew, and all of these were internal volunteers who helped me plan this event. And by the way, we had a little over 10 days to plan the event, so it was quite rushed. But we wanted to make it something special. So the idea was that we were going to go on a journey, and we would start by meeting in a virtual airport lounge. And from there, we would all board an airplane and then fly to these different destinations and stop at each destination, from the mountains to the tropical island to outer space and then Planet Mural. And we would have different activities happening everywhere. And then we had this little plane here that we would show during the event. We would show, okay, we're here now, we'd keep moving around. So it was a very kind of interactive itinerary as well. And then we gave them some information, you know, before you go, here are the things you need. So I'm going to go in detail about that a bit further. And so throughout the event, all of these areas had, so the airport lounge, there was information, but we were able to hide the information and then reveal it every time we arrived somewhere. So in the lounge, we would start here. This was also indicating if people, you know, fell out of Zoom for whatever reason, had to come back in, they knew where we were on the mural as well. And then this is when our CEO made the announcements of the funding. And we continued along the way. So you had different images here to show where we were at all the way until the end. So that was the itinerary for 3 hours. And we also provided Zoom backgrounds. So I've seen a few of you now are using different Zoom backgrounds, but we're all using different backgrounds, or we have our natural background. Now here we gave people a bundle of images that had to be used during the journey. So we gave them this beforehand. We said, please upload them on Zoom. And then when we had 250 people on Zoom, everybody with the same backgrounds, it really gave us the impression that we were all in the same place. I have to say my favorite background was the airplane, the passenger seat, because it just looked like everybody was sitting in the airplane. And then the cockpit people like myself, the other pilot, we had a different background as well. So everybody had, like, the volunteers had their own backgrounds. So this was, again, to create the kind of experience where people would totally immerse themselves in something virtual and play with it. And we also sent them something else. So ahead of time, we sent them some physical props to use during the event. And the idea was that at every activity, you would be asked to use this, and it was bringing that tangible aspect to a virtual event. And there's, you know, by doing so, you're actually touching on the 5 senses. So at the beginning, when we celebrated, we had people turn on these USB disco lights that were connected to their computer. So you had 200 people on Zoom with these rainbow lights going all over the place once the announcement of the funding was made. That was really exciting. We had sleeping masks on the flight, so people would pull them down between one activity and the next, and they were going to be surprised to say, you know, take them up, take them down. We had lip balm for the mountains, for your chapped lips. We had sunscreen and a portable fan for the tropical island, and a little in-flight meal, which was an astronaut snack once we were in outer space. So it was touching all the senses. And that was the first time I had done that. And I have to say it was really fun, because you also know that you're sharing that tangible experience with everybody. It made you feel, again, more connected to this journey that we were going on. So this is what it looked like. Once we boarded the plane, we had our flight attendants make announcements in both English and Spanish, and it felt really real. And you have to remember, people hadn't left their homes for quite a few months. So it was like really tapping into that craving of, I just want to go somewhere, I just want to leave somewhere during the lockdown. And we thought, you know, this is an experiment. It could be a total failure, but people actually rolled with it and they played along. You know, people were putting their masks on. You can see here, this guy was, you know, laying back in his seat, and people were really resting, you know, during the flight. We even had air traffic control playing sounds through Zoom. So you can share sounds through Zoom, and he was doing sounds of airplanes landing and taking off. The pilots were saying at each destination, you know, can we land? Is it okay to land? Mark would say, yes, you're good to go. So that really felt super real. And this is what it looks like from the participants' perspective. This is just one of our participants. He gave us a screenshot of, a photograph of you know, his screens, what he was looking at, and then he had Slack open in the middle as well to communicate with us. So that was great to see the other side of it. And you can see here all the props that he had ready for each destination. And so let me go through a few of the activities that we did. So before we took off, we actually gave everybody a mural template to fill out, which was a virtual passport. So we took off and then we landed on the mountains, and in these mountains, we said, you know, it's quite cold. We need to break the ice, literally. And so we're going to put you into breakout rooms where you're going to meet people from other teams and connect with them. And we told them to come up with a series of questions that they could ask beforehand. So I came up with 2 questions. For example, can you lick your elbow? And I wanted people to see if, you know, on Zoom, if they could actually do that. and what's one thing that you really want to do and what's stopping you from doing it. And in these breakout rooms, we would meet people from other teams. So each time I wrote down who I met, which team this person is, and also what question this person asked me, so that I could collect more questions along the way, because we did this icebreaker 3 times. And then in my passport, each time we spoke to somebody, so I filled out my passport with my details. Everybody did the same things. I said where I'm from and where I was based. And then we had stamps here. And so every time you spoke to somebody from a different team, you would copy that stamp and place it in the team that person was in. So if you spoke to somebody in the sales team, you would stamp there. And you knew which team people, you didn't know which stamps belonged to which team, only people in their team knew their stamps, so you couldn't really cheat. And then we had a secret stamp, which was only possible to use if you happen to be in a breakout room with the CEO, which obviously did not happen with me. But what's great about this icebreaker was that the whole point was to get people to meet others outside of their team and also have a memory of, you know, who they actually spoke to and come back to something tangible that they could look at afterwards as well, or tangible in 2D, right? But it also kept the icebreakers very engaging and very visual. So we know that it can be a little bit awkward to be just in a breakout room and try to think of things to say. So that's why having this template, letting people collect questions, do things, add sticky notes, copy stamps, it actually made people stay busy. And each icebreaker lasted about 5-10 minutes. So then you did one and then it was on to the next one, on to the next one. So you didn't really have the impression that you were there for too long. So that was the passport. We called it speed dating because it kind of did feel like you were just kind of going on these little dates with everybody at Mural. And then we had another activity. So we left the mountains, we flew a little bit, and we arrived at this paradise tropical island. And at this island, we had built escape rooms. So these were escape rooms built entirely in Mural. Here's an example. And again, you were put into breakout rooms with people that you didn't know. And here, the whole point of the activity was not only to get people to know each other, get to know people from other teams again, but also to work on something together and see how well you would collaborate, and also learn how to use Mural in new and different ways. So in this, now things have been moved around, but all of the boats were covering these words, and the whole point of this was to see what can I move around, how can I solve the question at the bottom. So there was something here, and there were several templates. So each time you found the right answer, you had to go to a short link, which was mur.al/ put in the answer, this exact number, and that would open another escape room for you. So we had about 5 escape rooms. People who have been using Mural for years were just shocked to see that there were features and things they had never thought of to unlock these clues. So that was really fun. And it got also new hires to understand how powerful our product can be and what they can do with it. So we had the little escape rooms, and then we wrapped up with a little bit of a show, which was organized beforehand. So I knew that we had a lot of musicians and people who like to sing at Mural, and I really wanted to do something a bit more entertaining and just have something that people like, an in-flight entertainment that people can just watch. Now the band told me it's going to be technically very difficult to sing live at the same time on Zoom and have a good quality of sound. So what they did instead, seeing that everybody was stuck at home, they picked a song by the Foo Fighters, and then they recorded, you won't be able to hear it now because I'm not sharing my sound, and so I'll just put this down, but they recorded themselves playing the same song, and then sent it all to one person who put all the videos and the sounds together. So you can actually find this on YouTube if you look for Mural Band. But it's been a really great show. I'm just going to fast forward it a little bit. So you had singers, and then we just screen shared this in full screen during the journey, and you can people's reactions. They were just going crazy because it felt like they were watching their colleagues on stage playing a rock concert. They hadn't been to a concert also for months. So this was very, very much appreciated to watch something. And since that day, that was over a year ago, the Mural band has reunited almost every 2 months or every month to create a new cover song, which we then publish in our employee newsletter. So we have a whole playlist of songs, mainly rock songs, that you can find also on YouTube if you look for the Mural band. And it's also brought, again, people together that would normally not collaborate, but they would connect over music. So the feedback that we got was really great. You can see, for example, these are just two messages, but having people who are very skeptical about what a virtual retreat could look like and thinking that 3 hours on Zoom was too long, to then say this was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. And, you know, being able to meet people from across the company that you would normally not meet. So that vibe, that wave of you know, just enthusiasm lasted for quite a few months after, and there's still people who bring it up sometimes as, you know, that trip we went on, which was really great. So I don't see, oh, thank you for the link, Ines. I don't see any questions here, so I'll just check if there are any questions about this specific experience. Feel free to post. If not, I will continue. All right, well, so that was the first experience that we did in 2020. And then this year in March, we were asked to do another virtual retreat, but make it much bigger and special. Thanks, Ines, for the blog post. Yeah, we did write a blog post. And in that blog post, it also explains to you step by step how we prepared it, but it also shares tips along the way in case you want to do something similar. It really gives you an idea of how you can do that. So yeah, earlier this year, the CEO, you know, again said, we haven't met in over a year almost. And the company has changed so much. You know, we've hired like 300 people in a year, and it would be great for us to also understand that the company that we used to be is almost like it's there, but it's actually changed so much. Like the company has gone through a renaissance, a whole rebirth of the company, and it would be great to connect with everybody, really dedicate time for this, and make sure that we all know, you know, where we're going, what we're doing at Mural, and just focus on that. So what came out of it was Mural Renaissance. And the idea behind this Renaissance was that we were going to go through another journey, but this time also more individually. So we came up with this idea of a labyrinth, which we renamed the Mural Maze. And the idea was that throughout 3 days, as an individual, you were going to go into this maze and meet other people sometimes, or sometimes you'd be on your own and get lost, and that was totally okay. And that's why it was an amazing retreat. Every day there were new activities that were hidden before, but that would suddenly appear in the labyrinth that you could find out more about, that you could join. And really the very challenging thing here was, you know, how do we keep people engaged for 3 days? And how do we manage getting people connected in such a global team? So we had to come up with a schedule as well. And I want to show you not only the schedule, but a website that we built for this retreat. So we created this website, and only people with a Mural email address could go into the maze. So you'd register, and then the first thing you see is, you know, your ticket kind of showing you that you are coming to this website, to this retreat, and then an introductory video that explained the concept to you. So the maze that I showed you was embedded, so it was a mural as well. It was all done in Mural. I see a question I'll come to in a second. So you would see this mural, and you could zoom in and out of that and read more. We also had bingo cards. We had different themes going on. So there were lots and lots of things to check. Anna's asking, what were the Mural features that surprised even experienced users in escape rooms with boats? So one of the features, for example, is how to find something by color, like a sticky note, or there's like a find feature that I can show here. Let me see. So I did the shortcut, which is Command F, and I can select, okay, you know, hide things or only show me things, hide everything that doesn't have this color, for example. So you can see that it will show me things of that color. So it will, if you have many sticky notes of different colors, that's useful. Or you can also pick, you can pick different objects, so whether it's text or shapes, and that is, for example, a great feature that we used in the escape room to hide and reveal things. Sorry, I didn't see that question earlier. So this was coming back to the website for the second retreat. We had the maze as a concept, and then we had a schedule. So here, actually, my time should say Europe. So we had people around the world, and we wanted to make sure that we created an event where people could come in and out as they please and kind of have a choose your own adventure type of journey. Whereas the airplane was, you know, the world tour was everybody's in this together for 3 hours. You can't escape really unless you want to leave the retreat. In this one, we had different sessions. We had workshops and talks. We had the crystal ball and the ice star. These were all different themes that we had. And then it would show the events on the different days and the times that they were showing or happening in your time zone. And so you can see that there were many different things, and I could go into one of these and say, right, I want to go into this one. I could see who the speakers were, what the description of that event was. And every time somebody signed up, their name would appear on the left. So I could see even how many participants were in that workshop, for example. And we had events happening, ongoing events during 12 hours. So that was really to accommodate people all the way from Philippines and Australia to people in Pacific time. And we had facilitators who were doing regular shifts and rotating. There was one team workshop, which was mandatory for everyone. And this was a very complicated logistically to figure out, okay, when can the sales team meet? When can the customer success team meet? But then after that, you were really free to do whatever you wanted. So on Tuesday, for example, starting at 11 my time, so it was afternoon for people in APAC, you had different filters, different events you could go to. These are the different themes. And if I'm scrolling here just to the side, but you can see that it continues all day. You have all these activities that you can go to, and you could sign up to all of these. And you could even see sometimes how many places were left. So we had some themes around well-being and wellness, like these were the reflections. But we also use these virtual platforms. I don't know if anybody is familiar, for example, with audio spatial platforms, where you go in and you have an avatar and you can just walk around in a virtual platform and meet other people. So we use things like Verbella. I can share the link afterwards. Or what was the other one? We used Meebo as well, and High Fidelity. So this Verbella here, don't know, it's not, yeah. So you would basically here go into Verbella, which you download, and it was a virtual reality campus. You could just walk around, you build your own avatar. And when you're in an audio spatial platform, basically what's happening is you are in this virtual world, and the closer you come to somebody, the more you can hear them, because it's trying to represent real life. So we were trying to find ways to create spontaneous, serendipitous moments where you could just go on this platform at any time and meet random people and then walk around and explore the campus with them or explore the island with them. The other one is Meebo, which is really great. I'm just checking the chat. So high tickets in the maze or escape rooms that can be redeemed for gifts. Yeah, actually, I do love that idea. We should keep it for a future one. Definitely, yeah, gamification is a huge way to get high engagement in any of these things. The other one, Ines, if you find it, is Meebo, M-I-B-O. You can share the link to that. So those are really fun platforms that we also experimented with. And we worked with a company called Abracademy, who have a team of facilitators who not only facilitate, but also know how to do magic. So they call themselves magilitators. So a lot of the sessions that we had involved, principles of magic, mentalism, card tricks, all kinds of magic entertainment. We also had dream interpreters, tarot card readers, did tea ceremonies, and we also had more work related things. And then we asked volunteers people at the company wanted to facilitate a session. So we had people doing DJ sessions, raves, cocktail making lessons. And it was so great because you could really jump in between these. And we had, 400 people, not all online at the same time, but you were never really alone. So I think it is getmebo.com is the other platform, which I really recommend just playing around with. So going back to, this is the schedule. I'm already in the website. And then here we had a list of all the speakers, all the facilitators, some internal, some external, like Abracademy, all the people who really helped make this event. As you can see, there's a huge amount of work here going to get, collaboration to try to come up with this event. But it was a really amazing, I know this has been overused now, but it was a really amazing retreat. And if you want to know more about it, there is a video that Ines can also share where we explain, all the workshops that we did, how we work with Abracademy to create this 3-day retreat. So that is, those were the 2 experiences I wanted to share with you. And going back into presentation mode, because I was showing the feature here before. This video, definitely recommend watching it because it really shares some of the views that people had, the experiences that people had in the maze. And what I just wanted to wrap up with was saying that, my role at Mural exists to not only create these kind of fun events, but also to get people to connect, to build our culture, to get people to understand that work is not just a place where we get things done, but also where we accomplish a lot of personal passions and skills and really get to develop as people. And I am so grateful for Mural to actually have somebody like, not just myself, but to have this role as a full-time role at the company, because it's not something that everybody does. And I've seen so many times companies saying, okay, now that we're not in the office anymore, we can't meet in person, so our culture is not the same. The thing is that it's much easier when you have a physical office to say, okay, there's somebody's birthday, we're going to bring out the cupcakes and the drinks and celebrate the person's birthday. And then people can randomly, spontaneously bump into each other and go for coffee breaks. And in the virtual online environment, it's not really possible. That spontaneity is gone. You have to schedule your calls. You have to schedule your coffee chats. You have to reach out to people more because you're not just going to bump into them. So you really have to be much more intentional, even if you don't have somebody who's head of culture or something similar. Maybe you have a group of people who do that, but it does require consideration and thought and time and energy to be put into this. I wouldn't have been able to do this if we didn't have all these people, even volunteers, helping me out. I couldn't have done this on my own. And I see, Mike, what is your quick definition of culture? My quick definition of culture is how things are done at the company, or at, if it's not a company, maybe in the organization, whatever, if it's a club or whatever it is. The culture is, how do we treat each other? How do we communicate? How do we do things here? What are the best practices that we have? And that's why, even documenting, it sounds a bit strange to say we're documenting our culture, but maybe you're documenting the best practices. You're documenting a lot of best practices of how you communicate and which tools you use and how do you onboard people. Because by documenting that, it's also like, it's not, I'm not going to say it's proof, but it's helping people understand this is what it is. And by documenting, we do it. We have an internal wiki. We use Confluence, and we have, for example, a lot of new hires who've come. They've all gone and read through it and watched the videos and looked at the murals and all the different formats, all the different channels that we have to understand. Okay, this is how we work at Mural, and this is how I should ideally, treat and behave with other people. Now, of course, we all bring our own personalities, and every time we hire somebody, they bring a little bit of the culture that they probably had at their previous company as well. That's inevitable, and I think that culture is not something that's rigid, and we're not trying to put it in a box and say this is what the culture is. It will evolve over time. So I think successful culture, that's a really good question as well. I don't know if I would use the word successful, but I would say, what is a culture that is bringing out the best of people or the best of the company? And I think that really if people are aligned with what that company's culture is, and people are motivated to come to work, people feel like this is the place where they want to continue staying for quite a bit, then I would define that as a successful culture. And if the customers as well are part of the receiving end of our culture as well, right? Because however we feel and how we treat each other and how we work together at Mural is also going to come and to be shown in an outward way towards our customer, and how our product is used and how it looks and how it feels. It's all part of our culture. And if you see that, for example, one of our values is play to wow. I would say that Mural's culture is also very playful, and we definitely like to inject and sprinkle fun wherever we can and where it makes sense as well. So I think on the receiving end, also our customers will notice that we have this kind of playful way of communicating. We have new fun features, like we have a let me show one here, a celebration confetti thing. Once I finish something, I can just throw confetti in Mural, and that's something that is also part of showing a little bit how our culture is. All right, so wanted just to wrap up by saying, if you haven't used Mural before,
could I throw a follow-up on that?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
So thank you for everything that you said there. And I think one of the things that you said is very interesting. As new people enter an organization, they contribute to the culture of that organization.
Mm-hmm.
So if we agree that culture is something that everybody should contribute to, so it's not a top-down thing, it's more a bottom-up thing, then it must be very difficult for you to continually find out whether everybody's happy with the culture, whether you start getting a separation of culture because you're geographically separated, and you've got cultural separations because of that.
Yeah.
That's going to be a really tricky balance.
It is, and you bring up a really good point, because we are global. Also, there's the actual regional cultures that people bring. People who are maybe in Southeast Asia have different ways of communicating or giving feedback than people in the US and people in Argentina, right? So the idea here is not just, okay, we all need to, it's one big melting pot and everybody has to think the same, but it's also building that respect for other people's cultures and finding ways to avoid conflict. There might be tension, that's a human issue, I think, but there might be misunderstandings. Okay, how can we communicate and find a compromise or find an understanding between our different cultures? And there can be, especially in our phase of growth, where we're growing so fast and we're bringing so many new people in. For people who have been at Mural for a long time, it can feel very overwhelming and say, okay, this is not the same company I joined 2 years ago. Like, it's totally different, right? But if you try to find, and that's why the company values also are very useful for that, try to find that continuum, right? What is like the red line? What are these threads that we can follow? And the value is the same, but how we use that value, how we show it may change. And we also have a value, for example, which is think global, which is great because it really brings in that aspect of, it's not just me in Switzerland or you in your country. It's also understanding that we are a global team and we are going to be different, but how can we use those differences to enrich our experience here and learn from each other? And another value that I really like is experiment like an owner. So these experiences, these retreats were actually huge experiments. And we knew that, and some parts of it, I will be honest, did not work or people did not like, but that's okay. We learn each time. We say, okay, we're experimenting. It's not about being perfect. It's about learning about our product as well through these experiments. So I think if we can look at it that way and say, we'll make mistakes, but we're experimenting and learning from it, then it makes it easier.
Yeah, and I think culture is also an emergent property. So as you say, you can find those levers that you can pull through various experimentation. I think that is kind of key to trying to see what works and what doesn't work, and reinforce the positives. And then, well
exactly.
said.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks a lot. And yeah, a little just news, because the free version of Mural is actually quite recent, because before you had to you could only get 30 days for free, and then you had to start paying for it. So now for the rest of your life, you can have a Mural free account, which is limited to 5 murals, so you can't create an infinite amount of murals, but then you still have access to all our templates. You can still have an unlimited number of people using it, and use all the facilitation features, which is something that we're quite well known for as well. If you are, and I believe everybody can have facilitation skills. You don't have to have facilitator in your job title to be able to facilitate. So what I'm doing here as well, is somehow facilitating a webinar presentation. So that is, what I wanted to wrap up with, though, is mainly if you want to do things like these events, it does pay off to spend a lot of time and finding a dedicated person who can work on this, or a dedicated team. So thank you for sticking around. And I'm open to more questions or observations like Mike did, which I really appreciate as well, because I get to learn from you. I see Renee has their hand up.
Yes, so for the first world tour you took 10 days to prepare and create it. How long did your 3-day festival event take to create and make and do?
Yeah, so that was done the first week of March, March 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, and we started talking about it at the end of December before Christmas. But the proposal, because I had to find an external company to work with, App Academy, which luckily I knew because I'm friends with the founder, which helps to just jump right in. But I would say the proposal got accepted mid-January from leadership and the finance team. And then basically from mid-January to end of February, that like month and a half was just like full on, okay, let's build and do this thing. And we created actually a separate Slack workspace because we had external people. It was too complicated to bring everybody into our Slack for security reasons. So we had a separate Slack workspace. We had App Academy had about 15 facilitators plus some core people, like I would say 5 core people on their team. So maybe 20 people on their side. And in Mural, it was mainly 2 of us planning the logistics, but then we had about 30 volunteers for the sessions and things like that. So it's a lot of people.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome. Any more questions? Or observations? Or actually, I have a question for all of you while people are thinking about questions. Who here has participated in a similar kind of company retreat with their teams? If it's a retreat, or maybe it's a happy hour, which is different, but I'm thinking more of a longer experience. No, I love those cards, Renee. Never. Paul says nothing is good. Well, Paul, what did you have? Did you have a happy hour, social hours? Mike, you doing a thumbs up? Never. Hi, Paul.
Hi there. So it's just easier to speak at the type it and.
Absolutely, I'm up for.
I had to get them. No, I just see people being very lazy and doing Zooms and with a chat session, but that's not enough. I really liked the tactility, and it's cheesy, but you need to shake things up. So by engaging with the other senses, and it's also the start of doing something. Yeah. You only get to the end by trying things out en route. So I'm not sure how well using tools, but I think it's also if you're in the right mindset, it's about company culture, and it needs to work within that. But yeah, I was really interested with some of the stuff that you were showcasing.
Thank you. You did say, I like that you used the word cheesy, because it was super cheesy. It was very.
That's right. There's totally a place for that. But it was interesting. The one that I was present at, there's a lot of salespeople there who were like fundraisers, who were really salespeople. And I was from the IT crowd, basically. We had a slightly more cynical approach to it all.
Yeah.
So you've got to understand the different tones and make sure that you can. It's really hard to just thinking it out loud. You've got to work. Your crowd won't just be one type. And you mentioned that, so you've got to get it for those different processes, personalities.
Different, and I mean, that's valid for an in-person retreat as well, because I did organize the one in Argentina in 2019 as well. That was also a very difficult one. I don't have any blog posts or stories like on video about that, but it's it's hard because, you know, some people are more introverted, some people more extroverted, some people want to party, some people want the workshops, and it's, you want to cater to everyone. And speaking of catering, then you have to think of the food, who's vegetarian, who's vegan, who eats meat. And in Argentina, you know, being vegetarian is not huge yet, it's getting there, but that was complicated in person. And then in the virtual, the first one we did with 3 hours, some people complained in the feedback that, why do I have to sit here for 3 hours? I could, and some people, you know, dropped off, which is fine, you know. And I think for me, a learning point was, I'm never going to be able to make everybody happy. And also down to the details, like sending the props. So some people are like, this isn't swag. I want company swag. I want the hoodie with the logo, with the t-shirt, with the whatever. Then the next one, no, sorry, yeah. Then we sent some swag ones, and then it was like, this swag is not eco-friendly because it's wrapped in plastic. And it's like, okay, I'm really trying to ship things around the world on time. To
the phrase now comes to mind.
Yeah. So, you know, it's really hard to satisfy everybody. And like, the employees are my customers. You know, we talk about customer experience. I work with employee experience, and what are my customers' pain points? How can I make them happy? Trying to understand them. Like Mike said, you know, you can't be everywhere, especially remote. I just cannot be physically in these different, or virtually even in every Slack channel or every meeting is going on. So I also rely on, you know, reaching out to different people who can kind of share with me what is going on in different departments and different regions. And then also I do set up meetings, like we have listening sessions to hear back from people. We send out feedback surveys after event. We send out quarterly employee engagement surveys to get a general pulse of the company. It's just not always, it's just impossible to satisfy everyone. And then so the first one, people said, why am I stuck in the same session? I want to be able to choose where to go. Then the next one, as you saw, it's like, okay, here are 80 activities that you can pick from. And it's like, oh no, I have FOMO, I have too much choice. I don't know where to go. Why is this at a time that I can't join? I want to be everywhere at the same time. And why don't we have a session where we're all together? And then it's, you know, it's okay, well, we went from one extreme to the other. Now maybe the solution is somewhere in between, right? A lot of,
but you're only going to find that out through experimentation.
Exactly, exactly. I see Mike has his hand raised. Go ahead, Mike.
So I'd like to pose a question, but first to everybody else, possibly before you try and tackle the question, Laïla, which is, I'm very keen to understand what everybody, what is the biggest thing that people have struggled with online spaces, virtual spaces? What is the thing that really hasn't worked particularly well? Does anybody have any experiences that they want to share? And if not, Laïla, I think as you're the expert on this, what do you think maybe doesn't work quite as well in virtualized environments?
Maybe I have one.
Okay, please, yeah.
It's very small scale. So like we're all in a Zoom meeting and we're all sharing video, and no one probably would have had any problem talking face to face if we met in the corridor or whatever. But now we're all at home. It's definitely in my company, no one likes to share their video. Nobody. There's like 1 or 2 people. And I don't have a problem with that. But one of our colleagues said, it was a privacy thing. They said, I don't want anyone else seeing in my own home. And I'm like, okay, I mean, I'm not sure what you can see behind me and get from my home and my life, but that was one thing. Maybe it was a cultural thing, I'm not sure, but I found that quite surprising that we're meeting face to face and it's not a problem, and yet we're not even wanting to see each other. So I found that quite surprising. So yeah.
If you don't mind me asking, how did you guys try and tackle that?
Well, within our own team, so I'm lucky. My manager is also very up for sharing and seeing each other, and he's also very social. So it was, we just said by default, if we're in the same meeting together, cameras on, because normally everyone's just cameras off. It's like, so we just said, look, we make it a massive effort that wherever we are, if we're together, and we still do it separately, but also in bigger departmental meetings, that camera on, even if no one else has it on. And we sort of started to see a few people then also joining with cameras, but still it was very, yeah, there wasn't many people that also wanted to, but we were trying. So we just thought, okay, lead by example, we just do it. And yeah, that's how we sort of tried to tackle it.
Have you found any improvement?
Some, yeah, in the departmental meetings, there are more people doing it, but only if we do it. If we don't start, no one else does it. So we just, it's what we just said to each other, my manager and myself. We start straight up, no choice, it's there, and we just, this is how we should be. We set the example. Yeah.
Appreciate your answer, thank you.
So if it's of any help, my company decided, or actually it's going to decide with the start of the new year to make it compulsory to have the cameras on for everyone, which will be quite a shock for some people. And in our team, we already have the cameras on, so it's no problem for me. But I will be so excited to see how people react to this. Something which is bothering me, and I experience it nearly every day, that I don't get verbal answers to questions. So you ask a question, and if I share screen, I don't see the people. And then like, okay, it's like 5 seconds. Are you still there? Okay, let me switch. I cannot see you. And it's so shocking that nobody is using words anymore.
Fantastic, thank you, Renee. That was my question. Thank you.
Sorry, go on, Ines.
No, it's more silly things than anything. One thing that I also find very difficult, I've been working with remote teams for a long time and distributed across the world, but I keep trying to do it and it just doesn't work, which is singing the happy birthday. So when you talked about like the band and everything, I relate, we try, it just doesn't work, but I always give it a try. It's fun.
Thanks for sharing this. Maybe you can try a little bit later as well.
If you guys are up for, we can try something now.
There's one thing that we've tried with one of my clients is actually just one meeting, our retrospective, that we agreed as a team to have our camera on, because I think it's interesting as sort of a compulsory camera on, because I think sometimes I'm in meetings all day, I always have my camera on, but during the end of the day, I occasionally switch it off if I'm not somebody who has a lot of input into that meeting. If I'm there, you know, just to stand it. I try not go to meetings that I'm not needed at, but you know, there are some meetings like that. So I'd be interested to understand how that compulsory situation pans out as well.
Yeah, I think using the tools for its purpose, it works quite well. I'll be worried with that. You have to do this at the end, you know, allowing people to use their own brain in their own ways when it works the best. It reminds me a couple of things. So one, I'm just going to pop a link into the channel, which is our first session of this virtual Agiles that we had Paul talking about improv in the remote space and how he was using the camera, in fact, to help with some of the conversations. So to give a spotlight of somebody when was speaking, and then everybody else will have the camera off. So we did a bit of play there. So I thought that was quite interesting. And just this week, I was having a session in groups of 3, where one was acting as the client, the other was acting as the consultant, and then you had the third one, which was the observer. If you watch Fringe TV series, anyway, so the observer was there but without the camera, so you can do a lot of things with the tools that we have. So it kind of like brings another layer So yeah, some ideas and thoughts to share regarding cameras there.
Great, thank you. I mean, I'd be very keen to hear from Laïla as well. So she's our cultural guru. How do you instill a culture where people are comfortable on camera?
Yeah, I mean, I've noticed one thing, taking a step back, I find organizations that are more corporate tend to be more uncomfortable with the camera on. I haven't understood why, but that's what I've seen. And also I've seen younger generations are more comfortable than older generations being, and I'm not being ageist, it's just something I've noticed. People who are older just tend to be a little bit more self-aware of themselves on camera, maybe because, you know, younger people are taking selfies all the time and on social media a lot and doing videos and TikToks and whatever. So in terms of culture, I would say it's really something, I think it's a good practice to, when you have new people joining, but you know, a lot of companies just transition to remote work. So then they're not new people and maybe they've been there for years and they say, this is what I'm going to do because you're not going to fire me just because I don't put my camera on. So I think having the conversation about why it's important, you know, having the visual cues, explaining it, letting people ask questions or voice their opinions and having like a healthy, I wouldn't say it's a debate, it's just a healthy conversation around this. And then what we've done is also we documented, these are our best practices for video calls. And it's not just having your camera on, it's also like communicating in the chat, or as Renee say, like speaking up, unmuting, also how to time a meeting, maybe end it 5 minutes to the hour earlier so that people can take a breath and have a toilet break in between. Like we have a list of things. The camera on is just one of the many. I'm leading by example, but when I was working before Mural also at a fully remote company and we had cameras on, it's almost like a policy almost, but we were a smaller team. And I think now also what happened is back then we weren't in a pandemic. Now that we are in a pandemic and everything was online, you have to do homeschooling is online, you have to do fun activities online, you know, for many months. Even I got Zoom fatigue and I never had that in the past. So now I've actually started being one of those people who put it off myself. And I think, you know, even mothers like feeding their babies at a time when they want to, whatever, it's or fathers also, right? Like I think we allow people to do that. But one thing I've found out is like doing, for example, check-ins or icebreakers that have an aspect where you need to visually see something is like a little trick to get people to turn on their camera because you're doing the icebreaker and then you leave it on. So one of them is one warm up that I have is like getting people out of their seats, first of all. So it's like, I'll just kind of demonstrate quickly, but it's like, okay, we're all going to do an exercise. So maybe it's like stretching and like I show a stretch, everybody imitates that stretch. And then the next person, then I nominate somebody else. So, you know, eventually if I called on Paul, he would have to turn on his camera. And this is not to blame or shame Paul, but he'd have to turn it on to then do his stretch. And I've done this with corporate clients and it works. There he is. Showing me his stretch. And also it has the added advantage that people are actually moving from their seats and they get like, you know, physical activity. And that stretching one has always worked really well for me to put camera on. So you make it fun. So then it's not an obligation. It's part of, and then you want to belong to that warm up and you want to belong to that, you know, group. And so you end up doing it. I don't know if I answered your question, Mike.
Yeah, you certainly did.
Yeah.
In fact, one thing I've seen in icebreakers is people using filters. So you might get the pirate's hat or something else, and everybody has to try and tell a little bit of a 30-second story about who they're trying to pretend to be. And I find that if people can laugh at what they're doing, they're then far more keen on just not turning off their camera, and they get into the flow.
Yeah. And one thing, because I see Krista said he's going to try it with his team. So we do have it in Mural, but also do I have time to quickly show this on a Mural, or is it, yeah? I just did it for a team last week who asked me if I could facilitate a warm up. So we call it Name That Stretch because there's an additional aspect to it where you actually give a name to each stretch. And then we also take, We also take I take screenshots as a facilitator of people doing. So I have the instructions here. So do a stretch, everybody copies you. We then say, I don't know, this stretch is called reach for the stars, whatever. And then we continue. So these are just the instructions. And here we had people doing it. So then we have like broken helicopter, the JavaScript stretch, pain. Sometimes we have some really pull request stretch. This is a great one. Hot fix stretch. These were mainly people in the Mural Labs team. Don't do it while in hangover stretch. So this is just, it makes it even more fun when one guy, he was on mute the whole time and we couldn't hear, he didn't realize I was on mute. And then he's like, wait a minute, I haven't done my stretch. So he really wanted to get into it and he had his camera off. So all of a sudden it was like, right, I have to get involved. So that was the pull request, Helen, that one's definitely my favorite one. And then the great thing was then this person then shared it in Slack. He took a screenshot of this and then shared it to the rest of the company. And that's also showing like our culture. Like, here's what we did in our meeting, right? It's a fun one.
Okay, are there any other sort of stories or questions that we'd like to share? Just conscious it's almost 1:15.
I don't have a story. I just wanted to say this has been really, really fun and a very communicative group. I've done quite a lot of webinars in the past years, especially during the pandemic, but it's true. I don't know who said it before. If it was, I think it was Renee, when like you have people who don't talk, and then even as a facilitator, as a presenter, I feel like, well, I don't know if I've had any impact on this group. And then you leave feeling a little bit like, but I'm going to leave this and then log offline to a very nice dinner, but also very happy to have like engaged with all of you and gotten to hear from all of you. So thank you.
Thank you. It was really gorgeous. And actually, I would really love to know more about how you made the workshops, but I think this would now explode the time box. So
but you can reach out to me, Renee. I'm happy to have a call. I also saw, sorry, Krista said Greece, icebreakers are a thing in Greece. You can always introduce it, right? I also have, I don't know, let me put my background off. This book, where did I put my background off? 1 second. Okay, this is, why is my background still not off? There we go. I don't know if it's back to front, if it's mirrored, but anyway, rituals for virtual meetings. Yeah, Renee has seen it. Take a screenshot, if anything, without my face. 2 people, including myself, in Mural are featured, but that's not why I'm suggesting it. I'm reading through it and finding like lots of fun things to do, like little icebreakers and other kinds of rituals, and they have different kinds of rituals. So for starting a meeting, or for focusing, or for culture, or for training, or for social gatherings, they have different themes.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Thank you for
I love these
Renee.
cards.
I love them too. Right? Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And I think sometimes, like you're saying, Christos, it's hard. But I often just say, guys, do you fancy doing an experiment? I learned about this last night. Sounded a bit silly and fun. Or not even, back it up. And usually people are up for a bit of experimentation. Makes life a bit fun.
Can I just quickly call out one other comment that I have seen? So Anna, it comes from Anna, and if she wants to contribute more and tell us a little more about this, please do, but there's no pressure in doing that. She just said, joining a new company and not seeing my manager even once in the video. So I'm very curious to know how people who are joining companies, maybe just out of uni, just starting a new job in a new company, whether you're new in the sort of in that position or not, that must be really tricky as well. So don't know, Anna, if you wanted to say anything more about that, or if we just leave it there.
Hello, everyone. Well, I joined the company. I was there for a month, and then COVID hit, and then I changed my manager to a person in US, and that person was, and I'm in Ireland. So a person was saying, oh, if it was not a COVID time, then we would be meeting several times a year. And I said, okay, but it is COVID time, and I don't know how anybody in the team looks like because the rest of the team is in US. Can we have a coffee time where we can put camera on? And nobody showed up, and I asked him in one-on-one, and he never put his camera on. I changed the company. I started a new company this year during COVID and lockdown. I have met only one person so far in real life, and everybody puts camera on. It's completely different feeling. So onboarding is still hard, but at least they're human beings that care about showing themselves to me.
Yeah, thank you for contributing that. I mean, it must be incredibly difficult starting a new position and not knowing who you're speaking to, right? Because we also used to speaking to faces. So yeah. Thank you for contributing that. You're not alone, by the way.
I also used to tell people, so before the pandemic, when I used to try and advocate for remote work and also cameras on, I used to say, if you don't put your camera on, it's like walking into your office with a brown paper bag on your head, or yeah, just covering your face. So if you do that all the time, people just basically don't know who you are. And I remember there's one person I never saw her camera on, and also her photograph was not her face, it was a cat. I have no idea what she looked like. I tried to find her on LinkedIn, and she had a cat there as well. So, at that point I was like, okay, she's very, very, very private. I respect that, but it makes it really hard to communicate with somebody who I still have no idea who she is.
Yeah, but people need to remember that sometimes we need to allow cameras off. For example, at the moment, I'm in my bed because I don't feel very well, so I don't want you to see me there. But I wanted to listen in. So allowing people, because that person usually has camera, we have seen her, we know how that person looks like. So sometimes it's okay to have it off. I wouldn't expect everybody every time to have camera on.
So I think it's about choice and about a safe environment, isn't it, Anna?
Sometimes even I have to remind them that you can zoom virtual backgrounds, right? That's the point of it. Some people, they forget about that. And also I'm telling them, okay, now we don't have lockdown, but maybe in a few months we're gonna have, but when you used to have, I'm telling them we don't see people each day. So let's open the camera to watch each other, all right? So that was a positive thing. From my side, I was a manager for them. So I was leading as example, and then more people, they started opening the camera.
Okay, we've had a good discussion about cameras on, cameras off. Any other questions or stories, insights? Anybody would like to share with the I was going to say team, tribe, group, whatever you identify with? No? We are a team, Ines, yes. Well, yeah, thank you so much to come today, Laïla, and come and speak to us. It was super fun and very insightful, and I personally learned a lot. It's just so interesting, the amount of different things that you've done. Yeah, absolutely love it. And thank you guys for coming as well, and your time, and for, like you were saying, sort of being great participants and sharing great conversation and thoughts on that as well. We love to hear your feedback, whether it is good, bad, indifferent, anything really, because we put these sessions on really to know what people want to hear about. We do try and reach out to our wonderful guest speakers and try and get people in. If you want to hear about something, tell us, and we will try and get that topic on the table. So Ines put on take a minute to tell us what you think link. So please go for it. It literally does take about a minute. We just want to hear what you think. So thank you ever so much. That's it. That's the take.
Thank you, everyone. It's been great to meet all of you. And you can stay in touch on LinkedIn, Twitter, find me there, and have a good rest of your evening. And thank you, Helen and Ines, for inviting me. Really enjoyed it.
That's brilliant. Thank you.